They really thought they had you figured out. They watched from the sidelines, side-eyeing you, whispering behind closed doors, acting like they knew your whole story just by skimming the surface. In their minds, you were predictable, just another soul trying to survive life. But what they never saw, what they couldn't even imagine, was what heaven already knew about you. You weren't random. You weren't ordinary. You were chosen, even while walking through chaos. You carried light in seasons where darkness tried to grab your hand and drag you down. And the wild part? You still stood, still breathed, still believed, quietly. That's what messed them up the most. Because when this person finally saw it, when it clicked that you weren't surviving by luck, but by divine protection, it shook them to their core. They were stunned by your strength, floored by your grace, completely caught off guard by how heaven had its stamp on you the whole time. They never expected to be standing near someone sacred, someone with a destiny so powerful it stayed hidden until the right moment. But now, they feel it. And once you feel something holy, you can't unfeel it. They can't forget what they witnessed in you. See, in their version of the story, you were supposed to fold. They placed bets in their head, saying, nah, they won't make it. Too much pain. Too many betrayals. They thought heartbreak would break you for good. But when God is writing your story, every human assumption turns into straight fiction. They watched you walk out of fires you should have been burned by. They stood there frozen like, how are they still standing? What they didn't know was you were never alone. Angels were pulling overtime behind the scenes, lifting your spirit when you had nothing left, holding you together when you were one breath away from quitting. And the moment they realized that heaven had been backing you the whole time, yeah, that humbled them. Because you weren't just strong, you were protected, guided, anointed. That realization hit like lightning. They started replaying moments they overlooked you, the times they misjudged your silence, your patience, your calm energy. They thought your quiet meant weakness, thought your kindness meant you were naive, too soft, too emotional. What they never asked themselves was how you stayed calm while life was going absolutely feral around you. They didn't know your stillness came from faith, that every quiet moment was God whispering, hold on, I'm working. And when it finally hit them that you weren't moving from fear, but from faith, it shattered the whole illusion they built about you. You weren't broken by the trials. You were being refined. Now they look at you different, with awe, because the one they thought would fall was the one chosen to rise. While you were crying at night, thinking nobody saw you, heaven was writing your name in permanent ink. Angels were clocking your tears like receipts. And now the same person who once ignored your pain is being forced to see who you really are. Not the version you held together for the world, but your soul, raw and sacred. They're shook because what they thought was just another heart trying to heal turned out to be a vessel for miracles. And here's the truth they can't escape anymore. When God chooses someone, He doesn't ask for public approval. He just moves. And now, they're watching heaven move through you. But wait, because this is just the beginning. In next part, we're going to expose the exact moment they realized they underestimated a divine assignment, and why your silence was actually your greatest power. There was a moment, quiet, unexpected, when it finally clicked for them. Not all at once, not dramatic, just a slow, sinking realization that crept into their chest and refused to leave. They started noticing things they used to brush off. Your energy, your presence, The way peace followed you even when life was messy as hell. That's when they realized something uncomfortable. They didn't misunderstand you. They underestimated you. They remembered how they used to laugh when you talked about your dreams. Not out loud, not to your face, but internally, when you moved with hope instead of bitterness. They thought you were living in fantasy land. They couldn't see the foundation God was laying beneath every step you took. They thought you were winging it. Turns out, you were being built. Now they're watching those words you spoke in faith start rising in real time. The doors opening, the alignment happening, and it's messing with them because you didn't force a thing. You didn't beg. You didn't chase validation. You just kept walking, kept believing, kept trusting what you couldn't see. That consistency? Yeah, that's what really shook them. They used to call you delusional. Now they whisper the word divine. That's how heaven works. It flips the script when nobody is ready. They started replaying how you stayed kind when you were mistreated, how you gave more than you got, how you didn't clap back, didn't expose, didn't drag anyone online. They thought you were letting people walk all over you, but now they see it differently. That softness wasn't weakness. It was strength wearing a gentle face. They watched you heal other people while you were bleeding in silence. And when it finally dawned on them that you weren't just surviving, but ministering, that your pain had purpose, it wrecked every lie they ever believed about you. You weren't weak. You were carrying an assignment. And when they saw God moving through your hands, your words, even your silence, it messed them up in the best and worst way. Because once you recognize divine movement, you can't unsee it. They tried to compare you to others, measured your progress by timelines that made sense to the world. Careers, relationships, money, status. But what they didn't know was your clock wasn't set by earth. Your timeline was heaven made. So when they saw you step into blessings they couldn't explain, they went quiet. No slick comments, no opinions, just silence. Because how do you explain someone going from overlooked to unforgettable? It wasn't luck. It wasn't coincidence. It was prophecy unfolding. Every delay you faced, protection. Every rejection, redirection. And the wildest part, the same people who once looked down on you now look up to you. Because they finally see you were never behind. You were waiting on divine timing. They said you wouldn't last, said you didn't have it in you, said life would break you. But you didn't respond with arguments. You responded with alignment. You stayed still and let heaven handle what your hands couldn't. And now they're stunned, not just because you made it, but because you made it without bitterness, without revenge, without needing to prove a single thing. You let grace do the talking, and grace spoke louder than any insult ever could. They thought your story was over. Whole time, you were just on chapter 1. And now God is writing miracles where they predicted misery. But listen, next part is where it gets real personal. Because this is the moment they realize they didn't just miss your growth. They missed a miracle. And that truth, it changes everything. This is the part they can't shake. Because now it's undeniable. They knew your past. They whispered about it, judged you by it, laughed behind closed doors, acting like your mistakes were the headline of your life. They really thought your past would be your prison, that it would limit you, define you, keep you stuck. But they forgot something critical. God doesn't choose perfect people. He chooses real ones. The broken, the overlooked, the ones who kept showing up even when life kept swinging. And when they realized that the very things they thought disqualified you were the same things heaven used to qualify you, it shook them, because suddenly your pain made sense. Your endurance made sense. Your compassion made sense. Your past wasn't a curse. It was the foundation. They're watching redemption happen in real time, and they don't know how to explain it. They sit in silence now, watching your life bloom in places they swore were dead ends, places they called deserts. And they keep asking themselves, how did this happen? But you know the truth. It wasn't luck. It wasn't timing. It was the hand of God. The same hand that held you while you cried alone. The same hand that pulled you back when life tried to drown you. Now that person finally sees what you always felt, that you were different, not better, not above, just built differently, designed to walk a road that never made sense to the world, but made perfect sense to heaven. And now that the fruit is visible, now that your growth can't be denied, they can't unsee what you carry. You're not lucky. You're aligned. They remember the day they said you were too much, too deep, too emotional, too intense. What they didn't realize was you weren't too much. You were overflowing. You were never empty. You were full of purpose. And the wild part? The traits they criticized are the same ones that now pull people toward you. Your sensitivity became your strength. Your emotions became your compass. Your honesty became your fire. They misjudged a miracle, and now they're struggling to catch up. They expected you to fade into the background, but God calls you to shine. Your silence once made them think you had nothing to say, but silence doesn't mean emptiness. It means depth. And when God finally allowed your light to break through every crack meant to dim you, it was undeniable. Now your presence weighs heavy on them, not because you changed who you were, but because you grew into who heaven always intended. They can't unfeel it. They can't unsee it. Your existence disrupts their assumptions because you were the one they never saw coming. They hear your name being praised in rooms you haven't even stepped into yet. They hear people talk about your kindness, your strength, your faith, and it stuns them because others saw what they missed. That's favor. It puts your name on tongues without your effort. And now the ones who mishandled your heart are watching the world honor it. That realization hits like thunder. They used to roll their eyes at your dreams. Now they're watching those same dreams manifest. They can't deny it anymore. You kept loving after being hurt, kept giving when you had little left, kept forgiving when it would have been easier to harden. They thought you were naive. Turns out, love was your weapon. Forgiveness was your power. Faith was your foundation. You went through what would have destroyed them and came out glowing. Not surface level glow, soul level. The kind that only comes from being carried by angels when no one else showed up. Now they know. You were heaven's secret, revealed at the perfect time. They thought your silence meant you didn't fight back, but you weren't passive. You were protected. You knew who fought your battles. And now that the results are in, now that everything meant to break you became your promotion, they can't deny it. You trusted heaven when earth gave you nothing. And now the same people who mocked your faith are witnessing your victory. You weren't buried. You were planted. And now the garden is visible. They carry your memory differently now, not with regret, but reverence, because you didn't just pass through their life. You awakened something in them. You were the lesson, the mirror, the reminder that God still sends people wrapped in light, and that truth changed them. So if this message is hitting your spirit right now, if your heart feels heavy but peaceful at the same time, this is your confirmation. You were never ordinary. You are always chosen, and what heaven started in you, it's far from finished. Stay connected. There's another message waiting for you, and it will explain why divine timing is about to shift everything in your favor.